Today, Thursday, October the 15th, we celebrate the feast of Saint Teresa of Jesus, more popularly known as Saint Teresa of Avila, foundress of the Discalced Carmelites, mystic, and described as one of the towering figures in Christian history. Teresa was born near Avila in 1515 of an aristocratic Castilian family with Jewish ancestry. At the age of 20, between periods of illness, she entered the Carmelite convent at Avila, where she continued a fairly lax life for 2 decades. Then, in 1554, at the age of 39, while praying before a statue of the wounded Christ on the cross, she underwent a profound spiritual conversion. Almost immediately, she began to experience the sensation of God's love, transforming her from within. She later wrote, "I could not bear to be rich." She received encouragement from Saints Francis Borgia and Peter of Alcantara to accept her mystical and visionary experiences as having their origin in God. The following 5 years was a period of misunderstanding and ridicule, influenced by suspicion of the role of active women in the church. Finally, she felt the need to found a house of her own, where the primitive Carmelite rule would be strictly observed. And so in 1562, with 13 other nuns, she established such a convent in Avila under the patronage of Saint Joseph. It was known as the Discalced. Discalced means shoeless Carmelites, although they did wear hemp sandals. At the same time, she started composing a draft of her life, which included a treatise on mystical prayer using the imagery of water. And she was a strong believer in holy water, claiming to have used it with success to repel evil spirits and temptations. The initial convent became the prototype for 16 others that she would found during her lifetime. The mode of life was marked by personal poverty. How she nonetheless accomplished what she did was answered by her comments, "Teresa and this money are indeed nothing, but God, Teresa, and these ducats suffice." At the time, she displayed talent as an extraordinarily gifted administrator. For example, attentive to the task of weeding out unacceptable candidates for convent life, she once declared, "God preserve us from stupid nuns." Along the way, she endured the Inquisition, sickness, hunger, the misery and hazards of travel, and indeed one time her donkey cart overturned, throwing her into a muddy river. When she complained, she heard a voice from within her say, "This is how I treat my friends." "Yes, my lord," she answered, "and that is why you have so few of them." Early writings done under obedience and encouragement were The Way of Perfection, and also meditations on the Song of Songs. She convinced a newly ordained Carmelite priest, whom we know as St. John of the Cross, to collaborate with her in the reform of the Carmelite order. There was strong opposition, however, including the imprisonment of St. John of the Cross. Derided as unstable, she then appealed to the king for support, and then in 1580, the discalced Carmelites were given their own provincial area for operation. In 1577, she began the composition of her remarkable masterpiece, the interior castle. The interior castle is a disguised, remarkable autobiography. It describes the mystical life through the symbolism of 7 mansions, with the first 3 as the pre-mystical journey to God, and the next 4 mansions as growth in the mystical life, leading to spiritual marriage in the 7th. For her, the test of growth in the mystical life involved love of neighbor. While she profoundly was contemplative, she also led an active life as an advisor to countless people from every station of life. Teresa died on October the 4th, 1582, on her way back from Burgos, where she had made her last foundation. The very next day, the Gregorian reform of the calendar was adopted, resulting in date changes, as under the old calendar, it otherwise would have been October the 15th. Her cult spread rapidly. She was canonized in 1622, along with Ignatius of Loyola, Francis Xavier, and Philip Neri. In 1970, along with Catherine of Siena, Pope Paul VI named Teresa one of the first women to be recognized as a doctor of the Church because of her outstanding contribution to mystical theology and Christian spirituality. Few of all the things rival the variety and depth of her mystical experiences. She experienced frequent ecstasies in which it seemed that her heart had been pierced by God's love. This influenced the most famous artistic representation of her, namely a sculpture by Bernini, and we find it in the Church of Santa Maria della Vittoria in Rome. Reportedly, she also had a lifelong devotion to the Infant of Prague. A basic definition of prayer by her was that it was, quote, nothing but friendly intercourse and frequent solitary converse with him who we know loves us, unquote. In a maxim that she left for her sisters, she wrote, quote, remember that you have only one soul, that you have only one death to die, that you have only one life which is short and has to be lived by you alone, and that there is only one glory which is eternal. If you do this, there will be many things about which you care nothing, unquote. Not surprisingly, the philosopher Edith Stein entered the Carmelite order on her feast day, October 15th, and took Teresa as her model in her choice of religious name as Teresa Benedicta of the Cross. Saint Teresa is a patron of Spain, and in fact, one of her relics, a hand, ended up with Generalissimo Franco, the former leader of Spain, who kept it by his bed until his death in 1975. In times of anxiety, it is well to ask the intercession of this amazing holy woman. We might recall one of her famous poems, let nothing disturb you, let nothing make you afraid, all things are passing, God alone never changes, patience gains all things. If you have God, you will want for nothing. God alone suffices.